What does it really take to help students succeed? What barriers keep them from graduating? And how are today's higher ed leaders rethinking the path forward? On the Outcomes podcast, listeners hear strategies behind enrollment, innovations driving student success, and lessons learned from campuses across the country. While the show celebrates the wins, it also explores what's next, shifting demographics, emerging technologies, and bold ideas reshaping education at scale. Hosted by James Dressing, the Outcomes podcast uncovers the future of student outcomes, one conversation at a time.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Outcomes podcast. I'm very excited to be joined by Lindsey O'Reilly, joining us from NYU. Lindsey, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Lindsey, I'd love to start by just understanding your background a little bit more. Tell us about how you ended up in higher education.
Absolutely. So I started actually as a student tour guide working in the admissions office of my undergrad. And I loved it so much I became an admissions assistant. And from there, when I graduated, I knew I wanted to stay in the world of higher education. And so I became an enrollment counselor, from there an admissions specialist, and now I am an assistant director of admission operations within NYU School of Professional Studies, where I help with recruitment, and I also help with system operations. So building applications, building workflows, and making the application overall easier for students.
That's wonderful. And I believe you mentioned you're getting your master's degree as well.
Yes, I'm getting a master's of science in learning technology. So I'm learning how to build courses with the help of technology that attribute to adult learning, which I think in this day and age is going to be really helpful, hopefully.
And I think, the first question I have for you on that, so you're seeing this in your master's degree as well, but things are changing very, very heavily in the world of tech, particularly with AI. How are you seeing things impact NYU? How are you thinking about all the shifting technology?
It's a really fast growing, changing shift that we're seeing, especially when it comes to AI. We see AI kind of all over the place in admissions right now, in terms of students writing their personal statements, letters of recommendation, even just the admissions technology that we use. So we use a platform called Slate Technolutions. A lot of different schools use it. I think it's an incredible platform. And one of the ways that AI has really been incorporated in Slate is through kind of a knowledge base. So with Slate, you can click on, it's almost like a chat bot that Slate has, but it's run by AI. So you can ask different Slate questions, like how do I build this data set query? How do I build this HTML code? And it will give you instant specific results that are specific to your instance of Slate, which is incredible to me.
So it sounds like it's enabling you to kind of do a lot more on the technical side than you would be otherwise.
Definitely, yeah. And one of the boundaries that I think our admissions office is really trying to draw is using that in terms of actual student review. So we do still believe in a human-centered, student-focused approach. And so there are still real humans looking at applications. We're still looking at, your grades, your extracurriculars, your professional level experience. And so that's something that we don't really want AI to be converging on, but it is nice to have it on the back end of things just to make automations and systems easier.
That makes a lot of sense. It's kind of what we're hearing consistently from other folks in higher education as well, is that it kind of helps you with all the tasks that you don't want to spend the time on. To your point, HTML, emails, that's a very time-intensive task. It's much better to just get it done and move along. And how are you seeing students respond? What are you seeing in the classroom itself?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of AI helper tools, and I think professors in particular are really embracing AI as a tool. One of the tools that I'm actually using in my master's is called Boodlebox, Boodle box. And my professor, she essentially took her account of Boodlebox, entered in all of our readings, entered in the course syllabus, and was able to configure different AI prompts that we can ask, different discussion questions that we can ask the AI, and it's really been helpful to use that specific AI in our class discussions, because it kind of helps in terms of, like, if we're in a breakout room with another student, it can help us facilitate that conversation without us just kind of sitting there awkwardly. Another really handy tool that I just discovered is called Interview Buddy. And you have to be an NYU student to use it, but it is really useful for job finding. And that's something that professors and the Career Center at NYU has really started embracing. So you can upload your resume, it'll tell you different errors with your resume. You can do practice interviews with the AI as well and record those and get feedback on your responses. So I like seeing it being used as a tool almost similar to like a calculator in a way, where it's not overtaking everything, but it's helping.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think it's something that we're hearing a lot of is that localized AI solutions that are very specific for a use case is what a lot of higher ed leaders are using. So to your example, folks in the classroom need something that's a little gated to the course content rather than very, very open-ended exploratory type uses of it. It's really cool to hear kind of the insights from the classroom. And I think, one of the other things that we've talked about is how you think about all of the different changing landscape of higher ed outside of tech. So you have a lot of different federal funding changes. There's a lot of different changes in the international student landscape in particular, coming off the heels of COVID still, where everything moved online for a couple of years. Now it's back in person. You've had to navigate a lot of shifting, market dynamics in EDU. How do you think the master's market in particular shapes up? What are the trends that you're seeing? What is changing for folks?
Yeah, it's so crazy to see how quickly everything has shifted in terms of just student interest, the political climate. There's a lot of different factors that are really coming into higher ed right now, especially at the graduate level. For masters in particular, I think we're really seeing a focus on ROI with students. Like, they want to know the investment that is going to be needed. They're taking that very seriously, and they're also wanting real results. With our programs in particular at the School of Professional Studies, we try to make it job ready for students where they achieve their master's in a very quick amount of time and they're able to apply those skills directly to their job, as well as providing those networking opportunities. And I think those three things are really key that students are looking for right now. They want to be able to apply these skills immediately. They want to have that network that they can utilize to really make connections in the industry that they're interested in. And they also, they want a niche. There's an MBA where you can look at your business, but then what kind of business? Business marketing, business finance. It's really up to the niche and kind of the pathway to that career that I think makes a master's worth it to students, especially in this day and age since it's digital. They want it fast and they want that ROI to be worth the investment.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when you say quick, what's quick in the master's space?
Yeah, in the master's space, I see things as quick as 1 year. 12 months is, I think, a really good timeline for a master's. I know in some eyes that might be kind of quick, but I think in terms of where we are in the technological space right now, 1 year it's a lot of investment for people. It's a lot of money and investment that they need. I don't think we're in an age where we can take 3 to 4 years on a degree at this point with how the job market is moving so quickly. So I think having that 12 months is a good sweet spot for master's programs.
That makes a lot of sense. And when you think about the higher ed landscape overall, one of the things that New York specifically is going to have to deal with is kind of changing demographic trends, right? With the enrollment cliff coming, kind of peaking around the 2030 timeframe, there's a big difference in kind of the undergrad population that you're expecting to come into play. How are y'all tackling that head on?
Yeah, so I think what we're really focused on is accessibility, especially with this new change, especially for international students. I know there's a lot of issues with visas given the political climate. It's overall a lot more expensive to travel to the US. And there are a lot of barriers for international students in particular, and NYU is a global school, and so we really embrace students from all over the world. And so what we're trying to do is be as accessible as possible. So we're trying to partner with different schools that are abroad. We're trying to utilize our online resources, so making online classes, both synchronous and asynchronous, available to these students. Trying to utilize all of our funding to contribute to different scholarships for students, both merit and need-based. Those are kind of just the ways that we're trying to focus. There's a lot of things that feel unfortunately out of our control when it comes to this changing space. And so the areas that we are able to change, that's really where we're trying to focus.
Got it. And I think, two final questions for you. Number one, if you put your student shoes back on, what's something that you're really excited about that NYU is doing that you're seeing kind of in class or for the institution overall?
Yeah, I really love that NYU is so student focused. And as a graduate student myself, taking classes now part-time, it's really nice to see just the amount of clubs and extra career opportunities that students get. There's a job fair that happens every term. There's a large event called NYU on the Square where they basically take over Washington Square. And it's a bunch of different resources and people for students to meet. So it's really nice to see how they really try to meet students where they're at, and I can feel that both as a student and a staff member. And so I appreciate that they are still doing what we can to embrace the students that we have and hopefully attract other students as well.
Yeah, and I think the final question for you, if you kind of think about what's happening kind of in the market, why get a higher ed degree? Like, why go after continued education advancement?
I get this question all the time, and I think my answer has changed frequently over time, but I myself am a lifelong learner, and so I think there's a natural curiosity that I always am going to want to learn. But I think, a higher education degree is really important. One, to just expand your knowledge. There is so much that you don't know if you are only stuck in one lane. When I went into my undergrad, there was so much that I thought I knew, and coming out of my undergraduate degree, it was a whole different world. And then coming into NYU, it was so much bigger than my small town. I'm from a small town in Colorado, so there was so many more people to meet, so many more languages to learn, and I think higher education really exposes you to all the different perspectives that you might not know you're missing. And I think that in itself is an experience that is so worthwhile to feel a little bit more well-rounded as a person.
Yeah, and let alone kind of the outcomes data is very, very clear. Degrees really help improve job and salary outcomes for folks almost universally. So, Lindsey, I really appreciate you joining on. Thank you for taking the time today. It was wonderful hearing your story.
Yes, thank you so much, James. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Lindsey.